Hey friends, welcome back. Today we're going over the geography and settlement of ancient Greece. Now, disclaimer, all this information is from History Alive TCI curriculum, and I'm sorry if I butcher any names. So, let's go. Number 1, isolated communities and difficulties of travel. So, first of all, Greece is a peninsula, which means it's surrounded by 3 sides of water. Show me the number 1 on your finger. So, if the fist is the mainland, your number 1 finger would be a peninsula. It's surrounded by water on 3 sides, but still connected to the mainland. Now, mountains. Greek hated traveling on land because of these mountains. Mountains in the area were very steep, rocky, and rugged. This isolated communities, which also affected their communication. Greeks found traveling by sea was easier, but it was still challenging. In the south, they had the Mediterranean Sea. In the east, they had the Aegean Sea. And on the west, they had the Ionian Sea. Number 2, farming in ancient Greece. Most people in Greece made their living from farming, but it wasn't easy. Land, there's limited flat land and mostly all mountains, and all of the land was rocky. The water, no rivers, and it rained only in the winter. This was not helpful because you primarily start planting crops in the spring or sometimes in summer, and if it only rained in winter, you have very little waterfall. So, even the plains and valleys had very rocky land. Next, farmers produced crops that needed less land. This tended to be grapes and a lot of olive oil. They used this for cooking, making soap, and fuel for lamps. Ancient Greek farmers grew their own food for their own families. This was vegetable gardens, they would have hillside orchards of fruit and nut trees, and some even kept bees for honey. Continued. Greek farmers raised animals too. They raised sheep and goats because they could easily graze on sides of the mountains, unlike cattle who could only graze on flat land. Other common animals, they had sheep, which provided wool for clothing, goats provided milk and cheese, chickens provided eggs and meat, pigs provided meat, and then donkeys, oxen, and mules provided farm plowing and transportation. The shortage of good farmlands sometimes led to war between the Greek settlements. This led to number 3, starting colonies. The population of the Greek communities were increasing, but their existing farmland no longer produced enough food to feed all of the people. So pretty much, imagine your house and where you live. Your house can't get any bigger to keep fitting more and more people, but yet if you keep adding more to your family, fitting in that house, it would end up being very troublesome. You can't necessarily get more land, but you could try to take over someone's land, or you have to find a way to feed all those people. So one solution was to start colonies, a settlement under a control of a distant country, and people who set up these colonies were called colonists. Now, Greeks started colonies across nearby seas in order to farm, trade, and ship food and goods back home. An ideal location would be in a harbor, since the easiest way to transport things was by ship. So if you look at the map, you will see that there's arrows going to Europe, Asia, Africa, Egypt, Carthage, and all of those, you can start seeing those little symbols of what they gathered most there. So in Europe, they had a lot of iron. Asia, they had a lot of gold. Egypt, grain. Africa had wool, and they would all bring them back to kind of their main land. Continued. Colonists faced many obstacles and often fought other Greek communities because they wanted more land. Ancient Greek colonies were able to successfully spread their culture around the Mediterranean. So if we go back to that map, you'll see that they split up. They went to Europe and Asia and Africa. But just because they were in those new places, they were able to spread their culture around the Mediterranean. They stayed strong in their beliefs, but other people started learning about them. Number 4, trading for needed goods. Many Greek settlements on the mainland relied on trade with each other to get needed goods. They exchanged olive oil and pottery, which they had plenty, for goods such as grain, timber, and metal. These goods were traded by merchant ships rather than on land. Fun fact, sailors used stars to help them steer since they didn't have compasses or lighthouses to guide or warn them. Alrighty, so there's a quick review of geography and settlement of Greece. If you like this video or find it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.